I wanted to take a look at problem 1 and 2 from quiz 7 because those also seem to be problematic for students. I am in quiz 7 as a student, and even though it's past due, I can go into past assignments from the class page, and if you click in these boxes, no response, you'll get this box, practice another version. And then you can practice different versions of a problem that you had problems with even though the due date is past. So that's what I've done here. And when I chose practice another version with this, with number 1, it brought up this. So notice that this is already set relative to 0, so I don't need to move anything over because that's the first step in solving a quadratic inequality. And notice something else. This is a perfect square trinomial. So if you notice that, life's a little bit easier. So this is 7x plus 1 quantity squared. So 7x plus 1 squared is 7x plus 1 times 7x plus 1, obviously, which means you have a repeated 0. So the graph of this only has 1 0 at the x-axis, right? So that means that the vertex must be at the x-axis. So I'm going to flip over here to show you what that means. I'm going to turn this guy off and turn this on. So there's 7x plus 1 quantity squared. So as you can see, it just touches the x-axis in one point because it has that repeated 0 there. So let's go back to this. So I need to, so the inequality is worse is greater than 0. So since this opens up and it has a vertex on the x-axis, all points have y values that are greater than 0 except that vertex. That vertex has a y value that's equal to 0. So I want to include all values except minus 1/7. So I'll try to enter that in WebAssign. Wish me luck. And then with practice another version, grade this is how you see if you got it right or not. And then you can try it again and again. So now let's look at number 2. So from practice another version, it brought up this inequality. So notice that it's not set relative to 0 for me, so I need to move 5x and 4 over. Or you could move 3x squared over, but then you'd have a negative, and most people don't like to do that. So I'm going to get rid of this stuff that I had before. So if I move the 5x and the 4 over, I'll have 3x squared minus 5x minus 4 is greater than or equal to 0. So let's think about this. This is a parabola that opens up because the leading coefficient is positive. So where is it going to be greater than 0? To the left and to the right of any x-intercepts. So let's go over here to verify that. So I have 3x squared minus 5x minus 4. I'm going to turn off that old graph and turn on that graph. So where is that greater than 0? These y values that are above the x-axis come from these intervals to the left of the smaller 0 and to the right of the larger 0. So I'm going to have the union of two intervals as my answer. So instead of trying to factor this by hand, it might not factor. I don't see anything obvious here. So especially on a test, just use the quadratic formula because that always works. And it's time saving if you do it right. So I'm using the quadratic formula, and I get 5 plus or minus the square root of 73 over 6. In WebAssign, don't try to enter that as a decimal because that's an approximation and WebAssign won't take it. So the smaller 0 is going to be 5 minus the square root of 73 over 6. And the larger 0 is going to be 5 plus the square root of 73 over 6. So let's go and try to enter that in WebAssign. I think WebAssign, will it do that? Yes. You can type in SQRT for a shortcut to square root. Now, since it was less than or equal to, I need to include my endpoints. So I made a mistake, so I'm going to highlight this. And I'm going to choose that template. All right, let's keep our fingers crossed. Yay, it worked. So again, I suspect maybe some of the reason that these were problematic might be the input and the interval notation in WebAssign. Whatever problem you might have had, please email me or let me know, or do an Ask My Teacher in WebAssign. And that's it. Thanks.